Welcome to the Toke&Trans podcast, where two Toke&Trans guys talk life, love, and getting high. Grab a J and join us. The following episode might contain discussions of things that might make some uncomfortable. We do not condone the consumption of illicit activities of anyone under the age of 21.
Well, today we are covering the topic of mental health. Obviously, super important to talk about these things, but they can be heavy. So if you're not in a good space today, or if it's just like not feeling the heaviness, maybe you're already heavy today, maybe you should skip over to another episode.
Yeah, listen to the relationships one. That one's funnier.
Yeah, the one right before this one, relationships. That one will make it. But sometimes you need to hear about that mental health, so we're going to break it down. We're going to tell you guys our experiences with it, and
oh boy,
and do some sharing time.
Fun stuff.
Yes.
So I had been coming into these episodes really prepared. This one, I'm not prepared at all. So
you said you've been talking about this for a while. You've been sharing your
thoughts. No, I could chapters 1 through 17 memorized,
Absolutely. Got that in there. That's good though. And we want to share that with you guys so that you guys can learn from our experiences, because it may shave some heartbreak off of your life. Maybe you never know. So
God willing.
You what?
God willing.
God willing. Hopefully, maybe a little something.
Aaron, how's your mental health?
My existing mental health?
Yeah.
My existing mental health is pretty good. It's pretty good. I wanted to start today's episode off with my first experience with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
Actually, no, I was probably 6 years old. My Nana had gone into the hospital, and that was the first time she had ever gone into the hospital. So I was super worried about her. And my great grandma at the time was breaking it down to me that like my Nana was in this, in the hospital, and that her brain was misfiring, that like the way that her thoughts were going through her brain, normally people, they go like this, and hers were missing every other couple one. And they were synapses, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. But so she was explaining this to me, and she told me that it was called called the bipolar disease. So I'm like, okay, so she's bipolar, all right. So we go in. She takes me in there because I really wanted to visit with her, but I had to wait till the right days and times, of course, because it was a mental health facility.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go in there, and I snuck in a rose. So like normally when you go in a mental health facility, you're not supposed to bring anything, but I had snuck her a little rose. And apparently I handed it to her, and I told her, Grammy told me that you have the polar bear disease. Because I thought it was bipolar, and as my little self as a kid, that's how I just remembered, oh yeah, polar, like polar bear.
Oh
so
my God.
I thought she had a polar bear disease, and I snuck her a little rose, and it was so like cute. The cutest thing ever.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So that was my first like introduction to it. My Nana had been off of her medication, and I had some cool memories with her before, cool now, like, you make it the best possible, but I definitely could tell a difference with her off her medicine and on her medicine, even at a young age. Mm-hmm. So that kind of was the basis for my first introduction to how your brain could be, mishapping as well.
Right. Like that something like that could be a disease, basically. Yeah.
What was your first experience?
My first experience was my mother. So I mean, I'm just gonna talk about it because it's what happened.
I mean, for real.
I was
honesty first.
I was pretty severely abused by my mother, physically, mentally, verbally, and my whole life. Without getting into very specific things, I mean, she beat the shit out of me constantly. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's uncomfortable, and that's what you do. But where's my lighter? Oh,
that's how you process sometimes, and that's totally normal.
Yeah. I just want to preface all this by saying, like, now I'm good.
Right. How is your mental health now? I should have started with that.
My mental health now is fantastic. I've been the most stable and regulated I have ever been in my entire life, and I am baseline happy, whereas before I would have told you that I was baseline suicidal. Like on a daily basis, like one
Big
little thing could have pushed me over the edge, you know, on any given day. And that's not the case anymore, thank goodness. But
yeah.
so growing up with an abusive mother doesn't give you the foundation that you need for good mental health. And my mother was very abusive for a lot of reasons, but one of the explanations that we have is that she was diagnosed bipolar. There was a very big difference between my mother medicated and my mother unmedicated. She would do that thing that abusers do, where she would, you know, beat the shit out of me. And then I still have this doll, this like stuffed baby doll from when I was a kid. I still sleep with her every night. It's really embarrassing, but I still do. She's like my security blanket. I just, whatever. She makes me feel better. I'm a 30-year-old man that sleeps with a baby doll. Whatever, sue me.
Deal with it.
So one of the things that my mom would do to like really get at me was to take my baby away, and I needed her to sleep. So she would take her away and like hide her in her room for like weeks, and then when she was in the bathroom or something, I would know where she was at in my mother's room. I would sneak in and like just rub her hair or something, or give her a hug, and then put her back before I left. And then when my mom was feeling guilty about how she just treated me, she would say, okay, go get your baby, you know. And like that was like, she never said sorry, but that was like her saying sorry, you know.
Yeah,
like, go get your baby, come out here, watch TV with me. And it was really scary to sit on a couch and watch TV with my mother that just fucking shoved my head in the oven door and slammed it shut 25 times just because I didn't rinse the Kool-Aid out of the bottom of the stainless steel sink, which was a thing that happened. Pretty ridiculous. So anyway, bipolar disorder is something that's passed down from mothers. So that was something that we thought that I had, and that I was, it made sense for the doctors, but turns out it was a misdiagnosis of autism. And since I've had that diagnosis, I've had a lot better of an understanding about myself, as opposed to like me being bipolar. It didn't really make sense to me. And like my swings would only happen when I was like overstimulated or understimulated. You know, I was it wasn't really like a mood thing, it was like a overstimulation thing. But
stimulation,
we didn't see that because in AFAB people, things present themselves differently, and AFAB people get misdiagnosed and overlooked for autism diagnoses all the time. So that took a while for me to figure out. I actually didn't figure out I was autistic till like this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So
before that, you thought you were bipolar?
Yes. I had like actually a lot of comorbid diagnoses. I was diagnosed bipolar. I was also diagnosed borderline personality disorder. And they tried to diagnose me with schizophrenia early, like when I was like 12 years old, because I told, I was just a kid. I was like 12 years old. And I don't even know how it happened, but I had said something about like my inner monologue to like my guidance counselor at school or something.
Yeah.
And they took it as like, oh, this kid is hearing voices in their head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's just like, it's the voice that's in my head. It's not like voices in my head, you know?
Yes, it's the, yeah, I see.
Right. It's the voice that's in your head. And like, it's, everybody has a voice in their head.
Right, for real.
And so, right, thankfully I didn't get it. That isn't to say that people with schizophrenia are like bad, or like that's like a bad diagnosis to have or something. I'm just glad that I didn't have another diagnosis on top of everything else.
Wasn't yours.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I wasn't. Yeah. So after that, I had suicidal ideation presented itself in me rather early because of the way my mother treated me, and she was a single parent, and I was her only child.
Right,
So it
just
was
you two.
just me and her all the time. There was no, my only safety was my grandmother. I would go over to her house every weekend that I was allowed to. And that
Right,
was another thing my mother took away from me
of
when
course.
she wanted to be mean, was I couldn't see my grandmother because that
Yes.
was my only safe space. And ever since I was little, like the whole family knew what my mother was doing to me, but it was like nobody could do anything. Um, which, you know, kind of sucked. Uh, but whatever. You
Shitty
know,
situation.
I'm still healing my inner child about the betrayal that I feel um
Yeah.
growing up with that.
I think many of us are. I think many of us are. So you're
Yeah.
not alone in that.
Yeah. Um it just sucked as a kid. You know, you're supposed to trust the adults around you, and I couldn't trust any of the adults around me because all of the adults around me knew what was happening to me as a defenseless child, you know. Um
Yeah. And not
and
anything.
all right, not doing anything about it. So my grandmother and I like had this deal like ever since I was little that as soon as I turned 18, as soon as I turned 18, she was coming to scoop me up and I was living with her. She was going to take me away from that. And I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. And there was nothing she could do because I was 18. And that's
The
exactly
golden
what we did.
number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's what
exactly
you
what we
get.
did. In the middle of the
Yes.
night, my mom was at work. She was working overnight. I called my grandmother and I was like, are we doing this? Or was that just all talk?
Right.
She was like,
Just
I'm
like,
on my way. Pack your shit. I'm on my way.
yeah.
And so she scooped me up and then she went to go to my mom's work to like tell her.
Mm.
That way, when she comes home, her kid isn't missing and she's like freaking the fuck out.
Yeah,
Yeah. So she was totally pissed.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Um, but I'm skipping ahead. There's
No, I got you. I got you.
so let's go back to you.
And go back to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, after the polar bear disease
Yeah.
diagnosis for Nana,
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize that people's brains were not the same. They didn't operate the same way, and I was very quickly understood why um, why my mother and why my parents were making these decisions that were just awful decisions. We were we were homeless for a time. My she was with like multiple men who were abusive and just awful things. And I was thinking like how is she able to reason these things or like make these things like go away in her brain. And that's when I really started to understand that my mom was also mentally ill. I didn't My mom was not medicated, not like barely diagnosed as like what my nana knew as her as a teenager, but like beyond that, nothing. And so she wasn't medicated. She wouldn't, wasn't no therapy or anything like that. So I was able to understand that, okay, she's also mentally ill. And like my nana was able to confirm that, yes, sweetie, like, she does struggle with some mental illnesses. Um, so that kind of gave me a little clarity as a child. I was like, it kind of gave me an explanation, at least, like why she was she would put up with so much and like let us see so much and that whole situation. So fast forward to when I was 16, 17, I started dealing with that same inner monologue issue. I was feeling so much anxiety and stress in high school. um, I was making a lot of erratic decisions. I was all over the place. And I knew I was all over the place, and I knew these erratic decisions were affecting more people than just me, like emotionally, like very serious implications. And so I had the guilt that I was dealing with that as well, and these voices. And I ended up just telling my dad, like, I'm staying home from school today. I I like I this voice. I did the same thing. I confided in him about my voice that I was hearing
Right.
in my head, and how racing it was, and how fast it was, and how it always came up with the like worst things first. And he let me stay home from school that day, and I hid out in my room, and I was just thinking. And I ended up going to a psychiatrist and trying medication. At the time, it was S-citalopram, and I reacted horrible to it. I started to have like started getting really close to suicidal thoughts, and I immediately was like, this is awful, not for me. I stopped going to the doctor, and just was like, medicine is like a no-go. That was awful. I'm never doing that again. And I stayed that way from junior year probably till 2016, so 2012 to 2016. So I was in my maturing age. I was very I distracted myself a lot from those things and tried other ways to self-medicate that. I drank for a while. Now it's kind of funny because I can't drink at all, but I did drink for a while. Every single night, I was making those erratic decisions for my self-pleasure and not thinking about other people. And just kind of, that was my reaction to my non-medicated self, that I didn't know that that's what was wrong with me. The non-medication, I wasn't really sure. I knew that these decisions were awful, and I was literally just, my inner child was just driving, So I wrote it off till 2016. And that's when I shifted gears. But I'm gonna shift gears and let you.
All right, my turn. Okay.
Take the
So, like I said,
I'm like, and I don't want to just slip this in, because my voice is getting a little shaky. So I want to let you people know that it's not always easy for us to make this content. We may be shirtless, we may be joking around, but we physically feel these things too, and we are right there with you guys in a lot of ways.
Right. We get a lot of comments I wish I had what you had. I wish I was confident like you. I wish this, I wish that, I wish I was brave enough to just walk outside like that or whatever. And
or swim.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me fucking too, because I sweat bullets sometimes before I walk out in some of my outfits. I'm someone's gonna say the wrong thing and I'm gonna get punched, and I'm gonna have to deal with whatever dental work, and that's gonna be expensive. And then I can't take pictures of myself if my teeth are missing. And it's just and then I dwell on that, all because I wanted to wear a fucking open button up. Now I have thousands of dollars of dental work or something, or hospital bills.
Sure. Yeah, no.
Right.
You shouldn't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah. But we do. And
we also worry about those things.
Yes, exactly. So like I said earlier, suicidal ideation kind of presented itself early in me. We had talked before in the religion episode how during this time of my abuse, I kind of I was trying everything to find answers, why the fuck is my mom my mommy, the person that I love the most in the entire whole fucking world, the person that's supposed to be, it's just me and her. There's no dad, there's no siblings. It's just me and her. Why doesn't she love me enough to not hurt me? And
I'm the only one.
Right, I'm the only one. What am I doing so wrong to make her so mad that she wants to hurt me? I did everything I could, and feeling very defeated and not having any answers, and being 12 and seeing how many years ahead of me until I turned 18 that I was even had any kind of hope of any kind of relief. I didn't want to live anymore, and I was feeling really comforted by the thought of just letting it all go. And it was kind of an easy thought for me, because the only person that was supposed to love me the most was the person that was hurting me the most. And there's no way that they would, they would care if I died. My mom, it would probably be better. I don't think she even wanted me, So I tried and I failed. And my mom took me to Dover Behavioral Hospital to get examined. And that was when they tried to tell me I had schizophrenia. And my mom was like, my kid doesn't have schizophrenia. Right. And then we left. but I didn't really see any counselors or anything like that. So then I went to middle school, and I was bullied a lot in middle school. And my mom was always of the school of thought, because her mother was of the school of thought, if I find out someone's hitting you and you're not hitting them back, when you come home, I'm whooping your ass. It's like, who are you more scared of, that bully or me?
Right.
And I get it. It's kind of a ploy to try to get me to stand up for myself and defend myself. But I wasn't a fighter, obviously. You beat the fight out of me. I can't fight back, because if I fight back, I get beat more. Like, you never taught me to fight back. You just taught me to cover my ears and cover my face. Like, that's it. So I didn't tell anybody that I was getting bullied. I just took it, which wasn't helpful. And I was getting there again. And so I was like, I need to talk to somebody. I want to die, but I don't want to die, and I need to talk to somebody who isn't going to tell my mom. And I went to my school counselor, and I was like, I need to talk, but my mom can't find out. And she did something. As an adult now, I understand that she had to do something. She had to say something. She couldn't not. A child went up to her and said, I want to kill myself. She can't, as a guidance counselor, she couldn't have not called the cops and my mother, like, I get it. But also, a freaking 14-year-old suicidal kid does not. I just told you why I want to kill myself, and it's because of my mother. And like, I get it.
Called her.
Right, and you called her.
Right, and yeah.
And my mother is very much appearances. So now she's a single mother, and like, the cops being called because the kid wants to kill herself. And now everybody knows it's because of her or something like that. So she's livid with me. And what does she do when I get home? Beats the fuck out of me. So, like, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah. So a lot of my childhood is a blur. I don't really remember much after middle school. I don't think I ever went to therapy while I was a kid. I remember going to Dover Behavioral. Okay, so when I think probably the next thing I remember, man, PTSD is a son of a bitch. I really can't remember. I can't remember.
And sometimes your brain does it for a reason.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
There are things that I can. There was something. Okay, I'm not going to get into it, but like, I've recovered memories that I had not remembered over a long time. And I was just sitting there. We were just driving. I was like, holy shit. I just remembered something awful that happened to me when I was 6 years old.
It's like a smell.
Right. Like, that's fucking great.
Awesome.
I don't know why I just remember that, but that sucked.
Appreciate
it. Right. So I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I remember I got the shit beat out of me. I remember I tried to kill myself. And then I remember I did. Okay. When the cops were called, they were like, I told my school counselors, because my mom's beating the fuck out of me. I want to die. And so when she called the cops, CPS, Child Protective Services, got involved. And oh boy, my mom was pissed. And so they were like, so while this investigation is being done, you can't be with your mom. Can you live with somebody else for the time being? So I lived with my aunt while the investigation was being done. I was, Aaron, I don't
Not your grandma. I was assumed grandma.
Well, it was because I was also going to school, and Mina couldn't really, I called my grandma Mina. Mina couldn't take me to and from school, really. Okay. She lived too far away.
Gotcha.
So from my school district. So my aunt was taking me. She had her son, my cousin Dylan, was a baby at the time. So I slept on the fold-out couch downstairs, and she took me to and from school, and she was talking about trying to take custody of me. And I don't know why I wasn't able to do that. I don't know what happened. All I know is that from what my aunt told me, that she tried to take custody of me and apparently it didn't work out. So
yeah, there's a lot of legalities
yeah,
involved, and as that don't seem right.
yeah, she had already had a kid and she was married to, I mean, they've been divorced since, but at the time she was married to her husband at the time, and they had just had their first kid together. And they lived in a townhouse. It was seemingly a much better situation for a child than the situation I was currently in. But we went to court for it. There's that investigation, and then we went to court for it, and we stood before a judge. And Aaron, the stress that I was under as a fucking kid, it was, and I firmly believe that this is why I have this condition that I have now, the chronic idiopathic urticaria, and why stress affects manifests on my body physically, because of the fucking intense stress. I was, oh my God, my heart was palpitating. Like, I was standing there talking to the judge, like literally shivering. My teeth were chattering. I was terrified. I can't even imagine ever being that afraid and that stressed out as a 30-year-old man. I can't even tell you a situation where I would even be that afraid. I wouldn't even be that afraid if somebody came in the door right now and held a gun to my face. I couldn't even be that afraid.
Right.
I can't, there's no words in the English language to describe to you the fear of a 14-year-old standing
as a kid
in a courtroom next to a lawyer, and my mother's on the other side with another lawyer. And
knowing
this judge
is fuck.
And this judge is like, can you tell me what happened? And I'm literally like, I can't speak. I'm stuttering. I can't fucking speak because I'm so scared. And the judge was like, okay, well, there's no bruises. There's no marks. You seem like a normal kid, so we're going to send you back to your mom. Like, fuck me. Fuck everything I said. I must have been lying. Everyone in my family must have been lying, because they also questioned my aunt and they also questioned my grandma. And they both know. And I know they both wouldn't have lied, because they were both very much, you're going to, things are weird and confusing, but you're going to, we're trying. That was the general consensus.
Right.
My grandma and my aunt, where they were trying. And that seemed like the time it was going to happen. And it didn't. And I went back to my mother. Don't remember anything that happened after that. Pretty sure I got the shit beat out of me. So, fast forward, not too much. 1 sec.
Mm-hmm.
So not too much ahead of that. And see, PTSD is funny because I'll forget everything about my childhood, but I'll remember 2 things really specifically, so specifically I could tell you what the temperature was like, right? Yeah. So I got bad grades, and my mom had said that she was going to kill me if I brought my report card home and there was any F's on it. She said the words, "I'm going to kill you if I see any F's on that report card." And so I packed a fucking bag with my piggy bank and some Lunchables, and I ran away. And I knew how to get to Mina's house. I knew the way there. It was far away. It was a half-hour drive, but I knew how to get there. Yeah. But the only way I knew how to get there was the driving way. And the driving way took you on to an on-ramp on the highway. Right. And there was no, I couldn't walk. Right. There's a sign that said, I got to the on-ramp. And there was a sign that said, no pedestrians. So I just turned around and just walked. I don't know. I was just walking. And then my neighbor, we live next to this Spanish woman and her kid. And her kid was a lot younger than me, so we didn't really play. But I knew who she was. I knew she was my neighbor. So she found me and was like, "Get in the car." And I was like, "Okay." So I did. I got in the car, and my neighbor drove me back there. The police were already there. They were already looking for me. And so they took me. I got back to the apartment, one of the police officers took me to my room and sat me on my bed and was like, so why'd you run away? And a police officer talking to a kid that just ran away, their tone is very like he's annoyed.
Right.
He's not concerned about my safety. He's annoyed that he was called for a stupid little runaway kid. So he asked why I ran away. And I said, my mom said that she was going to kill me if I brought home bad grades, and my grades were bad. And he said, do you really think your mom's going to kill you? And I said, yes. Yeah, I really do. I really do think that she would have. I do, truly. As far as I know, like me as an adult now, I don't think my mother would have murdered me. I think I would have got my ass beat like I always did. She never murdered me. She never attempted to kill me, but she did attempt to fucking beat the shit out of me. And when she said that she was going to kill me, I thought that great harm was going to, encounter me. And so I ran away. I tried to get to my grandmother's because that was the only safe place I could go. And
how old were you at this point?
I was like 14.
All right.
13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty young.
Yeah.
And my piggy bank broke in my backpack while I was walking. I remember that happening.
Yeah.
And so I was in my bedroom with the police officer, and he was like, do you really think your mother was going to kill you? And I was like, yeah. And he said, well, how about, does your bedroom door have a lock on it? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, how about you lock your bedroom door? And I was like, you really, like, you don't understand. You're not understanding.
You think
because if I locked my bedroom door,
like, you think
what would
happen?
What would happen is that my mother would break down the door, and then she would beat me in the head with whatever she just broke down the door with. And then I would not have a door. That's what would happen if I locked the door. And then they just left. That was it. Despite the fact that there was already a case that had been opened up against her for child abuse before. And I ran away and told them, despite all that, just fuck me. That's it. They just left. So I have PTSD. And it took a very long time. But I have done a lot of healing. I, as an adult, I made the decision to take matters into my own hands and go to therapy. I seeked out therapy that was going to be good for me, and I started taking cognitive behavioral therapy, which I cannot recommend enough. It was wonderful. It helped me understand a lot.
Remind me what the therapy, what the technique is on that one again.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, it's like a very hands-on therapy. You, at least for me, I was taught a lot about like the PTSD brain and how it worked and how I can help reroute my brain processes to be more healthy.
Right.
Like, for instance, some of you might know that I just cry all the time. Cry at the drop of a hat, I'll cry. If you're too nice to me, I'll cry. If you yell at me, I'll cry. If you put math in front of me, cry. Cry.
You say math?
Yeah, if you put math in front of me, I will cry.
Social.
Fucking Tim and I, all of Tim's friends are smart. They're all like engineers or some shit. So we were playing Sushi Go with them, and like at the end you have to count up all your points.
Yeah.
And you just have to add up your points. And I'm adding up. So like Tim and his friend are just like, oh yeah, 17 plus 85. That's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And they're just not even counting on their fingers or anything. And I'm like, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Bo cries all the time.
Oh my God, I just cried. I cry all the time. So I learned that I cry all of the time because in a PTSD brain, okay, so like in a regular brain, in a neurotypical brain, a person will see a stimulus, and then that signal will go to your hippocampus for processing. Your brain will process the stimulus, and then you will react. On a PTSD brain, the hippocampus is physically much smaller, like super small. So instead of having some time to process the stimulus that you just had and then react, I just go straight to react. I can't process the stimulus. So it ends up just manifesting as crying, even though it's not something to cry about. So it's literally nothing I can help, because it's just the size of that part of my brain.
How your brain is wired. Yeah.
Right. And there are exercises you can do to help retrain the neural pathways in your brain, because we did learn that neurogenesis is possible. For a while, we didn't know that neurogenesis was something that could happen. But since we learned that we can actually rewire those pathways, that's what cognitive behavioral therapy does.
That's right.
You basically get homework that you have to do every day. Every time you notice something that happens, you have to do, like, it was called the ABCs, and it was basically like if I spilled anything, I would freak out. Because that was something that triggered my mother to beat me. So I would get triggered by it. So whenever I spilled something, it was like, I would always freak out, even like not in my mother's presence, like just as an adult. That was just something I carried with me with my PTSD. And so that was one of the things I had to do my ABCs about. And it was like, at first you write it down in your journal every time. But the point is that you're supposed to do it so much that eventually it becomes such a habit you no longer need to write it, because you're doing it in your head. But the point is that you have to make it a habit, so you have to write it down every time you do it. So it's like, A is the triggering event or stimulus. B is your thoughts, the problematic thoughts or feelings that are brought upon by A, and C is the positive replacement thought for B.
Right.
And you can't leave it blank, and you can't get anybody else's help. It has to come from you.
Right.
So like, I spilled something, fuck, like it's not going to get clean. I just made this big giant mess. That I just start crying, and I get overwhelmed and overstimulated, and I can't clean it up. So what are the thoughts and feelings I get from that? I just kind of just said that. What's the positive thought? I'm just going to grab some paper towels. I'll clean up the mess. In under 5 minutes, I'll throw it away, and it'll be like it never happened, and I can sit down and relax. It's not that big of a deal. And as long as I do that every time, then I will create that neural pathway that no longer goes to freak out with spilling, and instead goes to calmly cleaning it. Right. And it's going to be okay. And I've gotten there. I no longer freak out with spills like I used to, which is like, that's so good. It's a big milestone for me. I still cry, but I don't freak out like I did. And look, I'm crying right now. I'm crying right now just because I'm not even just because we're talking about it, so there's lots of ways to be a person, and being a functioning person isn't easy, especially when you're raised by people who aren't functioning people. Who maybe shouldn't be having kids, but you're here. Everybody's doing their best, and now you're the result of it. And I think that everybody just needs to go to therapy. I think parents do things that they don't mean to do, and that it manifests onto their children in ways that they don't mean to. And it's hard to get help when you don't understand what's happening, and that's what therapists are there for. And I didn't even talk about when I turned 19. It's your turn, and then we'll talk about when I turned 19.
Yeah, I was thinking, and then I was just thinking, I was like, honestly, I was coming into this episode, and I'll be honest, I completely forgot that PTSD is considered a mental illness. So then when you started talking about, and you mentioned PTSD, I was like, Okay, this is okay. That I forgot to include that. So I want to. I guess we should probably go into that. We may have to cover the rest of our mental illness in another episode, but I do want, for me, anyways. But I do want to cover PTSD because that is, I do believe that that is a framework for when you turn 18 and when you are able to take your own life and your own decisions into your hands, you are left with some pieces that don't make sense. And you're left with a lot of broken pieces. And there's no manual to put those things back together that is easy and that you can do alone, that you can often do alone. So yeah, so I definitely think that PTSD, well, that was my first, as an adult, my first thing that I faced. I got therapy after my experience with escitalopram. I was like, okay, screw that. Regular therapy. I'm just going to do a lot of talk therapy, even though I had used my school counselor a lot throughout my school years. That was super helpful, and we went over things that had happened when I was a child. I was physically abused by my mom's first husband, or first boyfriend after my dad. He was big, he was scary, he was awful. Beat my mom, beat my mom in front of us. Just awful things. I was the oldest of 5 kids. What ended up being 5 kids before I moved out. So I was very responsible for my kids. Like, those are my kids. Like, my mom had always taught me that my siblings are like, like, you treat them like your own kids. So I loved, and so I would do head counts when they were in fights and like bring them in the bedroom and do 1, 2, 3, and because there's that many of us, and like in a stressful situation, and I feel I'm like 8 years old in charge of the rest of the kids, like bringing them in there, realizing one's missing, the baby, and having to go in there and get the damn baby. And I mean, like, get the damn, because it's scary, because I have to go in there and get the damn whatever it is,
right?
And get my sister so she's not in her bassinet while you guys are fighting and slamming each other against the wall. I got to get that baby in here. So I got the baby in there, and I remember trying to kick out the screen door, because I remember there was a trailer next to ours that was super nice, and she knew what was going on and would always say, like, if you ever need anything, you can come over here. I barely knew them, but I was thinking, if I can kick this screen out, then I can go over there and I can go get some help. And I couldn't kick the screen out. That's how small I was.
Yeah,
I physically couldn't get through the screen.
right.
So we had a lot of physical abuse to deal with up to 2004. So probably from when they were together from when I was 4 to 8. So 4 years, those pillar years that you get pretty shook at. So that was the physical abuse that I had experienced, and then from 2004 to 2005, I experienced a situation of sexual abuse, which I won't get all into now because I won't be able to get through it right now. But but I also had to deal with that and process that. Those were one of my broken pieces, that I had to deal with. It was from my mother's husband. My mom didn't believe me. So that was another broken piece that I was left with. That, like, not only does this happen to you, but then, your mom marries them anyway.
That's horrible, dude.
Shitty, total shitty.
I'm so sorry.
No, and it ended up working out as I was able to get out of that situation, and my dad was able to, after Katrina, my dad was able to bring us to Oregon, where I started a little bit of counseling. But during school, I would skip, lunches and stuff, because I would rather be in there talking to the counselor, getting through my shit. So
right, yeah,
that's
heavy.
Yeah. So
My turn.
now that my voice is shaky,
give
it to you.
My turn. So when I turned 19 is when I started engaging in what is known in the mental illness world as risk behavior. So like I said, I moved out. My grandmother scooped me when I was 18. I lived with my grandmother and my grandfather, Nina and Uncle Tommy. Uncle Tommy was my grandfather. He wasn't my uncle. I just call him Uncle Tommy. Don't.
I have a cousin that I call uncle for no reason. So some people, they're meant to be uncles, maybe.
He's just his name isn't even Tommy. His name is Gordon.
Okay, you lost me there.
Yeah, I don't know why. Anyway,
Okay.
So Nina and Uncle Tommy were my grandma and grandpa. I was living with them.
Right.
And I was applying to colleges. They didn't have internet, okay? They got internet so that I could apply to colleges. And
that is the cutest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it was the worst internet in the world, but they did it. Yeah, they had the shittiest little computer and internet, but damn it. So I was applying to colleges. They drove me. All three of us crammed in the front of this little Ford pickup truck. All three of us just in the one seat of the pickup truck, driving from fucking the bottom of Delaware all the way to the top to have, it's only a 2-hour drive. So that I could
in the truck, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that I could have my interview at the art school I applied to.
Mm-hmm.
I was interviewed by a local artist that I really looked up to. I had no idea that he was going to be the person giving me my interview. And he looked through my portfolio and they did what was called, a cold read, which is basically like the concept is that, if you're an artist showing your work at a gallery, the chances of you being at the gallery there to explain your work to everybody that looks at it, you're not going to be there to do that. So I'm going to look through your portfolio and you're going to sit there and be quiet as if you're not even here, because if this was hanging on a wall somewhere, you wouldn't be.
For me to interpret myself.
Right. Which is, do you know how stressful that is? To just sit in a corner and watch somebody's face as they look through your entire life's work at the time.
Yeah.
And after he was done, he said, "Your work is impeccable." And then he said, "I'm not supposed to say this until you get your letter, but welcome to DCAD." And yeah, I was the happiest I'd ever been. Blah, 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 blah. I dropped out of art school. It wasn't for me, but that was nice. That was affirming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that day was great. I got accepted to college. They helped me move in. Me and Uncle Tommy. So I lived, that was my first time living away from family, on my own. I had dorm mates, but on my own. And it was art school. All of my friends would go out to the stoop. That's where they went to smoke cigarettes, so I would go out there on the stoop with them. And then at a certain point, it just felt silly going out there and also not smoking. So that's when I started picking up smoking cigarettes. And then, those same friends, they'd be smoking weed. And while I had smoked weed before, at this time, I wasn't like a pothead. I'd only done it occasionally.
Right.
That's when I started smoking weed. And, every weekend, everybody would get fucking sloshed. So I was getting fucking sloshed. And, then everybody started kind of sleeping around. So I just started kind of sleeping around with everybody. And, for cigarette, like, just your first time I started regularly smoking, just getting drunk every weekend, fucking sleeping around. I did all of that shit. And then, that was also when I that guy that I was smoking, those potheads I met up with, and then I ended up having a seizure.
Yes.
We talked about that last episode.
Yes.
That happened during this time.
That was risk behavior.
Yes. So, yeah. I did all the crazy shit, and then this is when it went big downhill. I just got hit with this depression and this pressure. At the time, I had gotten maximum scholarship and government funding I could have gotten, and I still owed a lot of money. So I ended up signing for a loan, and no one was, I was really sheltered as a kid. I didn't know what I was signing
No,
No
yeah,
one was there to
no.
no one was there to like help me, tell me.
Those situations, no, they're so.
Yeah, it was just
Those are often very
me.
screwed up.
Yeah, they're
So
just like,
screwed up.
sign here and you'll be admitted to college. Okay, great, sounds
And you
great.
can deal with it later.
Right. So yeah, that was bullshit. And the person who was helping me, I had like a patron, essentially, someone who was giving me money so that I could go to school. They were like, they were a former teacher. Didn't teach at any of the schools I went to, but they were like friends of one of my teachers at my high school. And they said that I had talent. So they lived close to where my college was, and they would take me out to dinner sometimes, and we would talk, and they would look at my work and, give me money for groceries and give me money for art supplies and stuff, because paint was expensive. And then I started feeling I wasn't doing well. I wasn't able to turn in assignments. The assignments that I was turning in, I was doing in like the hour before class. I kind of just stopped going to class altogether. I stopped eating. All I would do was I spent all my money on cigarettes, and I would just go out of my apartment and I would sit on the sidewalk and I would just smoke cigarettes. I just smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke. And then I'd go upstairs and I'd lay in bed and I'd watch the same Ice Age DVD over and over and over and over and over again. And that's all I would do. I barely even drank any water. And I just felt so empty. I don't even know what triggered it. I don't know if it was the pressure of, it was finding out that art school wasn't for me and I needed to drop out. But then if I did that, where was I going to go? I didn't have a degree. What was it going to do? I don't have any experience. I don't know. Like, I was so sheltered. I had never had a job before at 19. So many of my friends were getting jobs at 15, 16. Their parents were like, it's time for you to get a job. Now that you can drive, it's time for you to get a job. My mom wouldn't even let me get my driver's license. Not for any other reason other than that she wanted to have that control over me. So I had written a suicide note, and it was like midnight on the streets of Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington is kind of like the city, like big tall buildings, and I mean, I guess it's as much as the city as Delaware's got. It's not like New York or anything, but it's a pretty decent city. Yeah. And I was just out on the streets of Wilmington at midnight, sitting on a bench underneath a lamppost, writing my suicide note, smoking cigarettes. And my dorm RA just happened to be walking by, and she had noticed that I had been acting weird lately. And she was like, what are you doing on a bench out here at midnight? Like, what, all by yourself? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, just hanging out. And she was like, do you want to like come over? And I was like, no, I'm fine. And she's like, okay, good night. And then that night, I had tried to kill myself, and my RA came by, saw that I was on the floor, called 911, and then the entire fucking school came out and watched me get taken away on a fucking stretcher. And I was like, please, can you just not make this a thing? Please. And then they had a grief counselor talk to me, and they're like, how are you? And I'm like, oh, real fucking great. Real fucking great. Now everybody in the school thinks I'm some fucking loony. I was so upset. I was so upset at that. And so then, yeah. So then I get sent to the hospital, I get interviewed. Very blasé about the whole thing because it's like the 5th time this has happened. I know all these questions. And I'm just getting very perturbed at everybody, and they're sticking with me with things and stuff, and I'm just like very much over it. And uh so yeah, I get admitted to the psych ward of this hospital, which is only 2 hallways on like the 3rd fucking floor. And over outside of the window on like the south side, you look out the windows, you can see a lovely little graveyard, which is just wonderful. It's the perfect view for a
My
bunch of
God.
people that just tried to fucking off themselves.
Wow.
And
wow.
yeah, real great.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so they kept me there for 2 fucking weeks. Everyone in the psych ward was all very old. I was the youngest person there. And I remember I had like this Polish male nurse who so while I was there, they had me on Ativan, which is a fast acting benzodiazepine, which is like a kind of like an anti-anxiety. It's fast acting and it's short lived. You're usually supposed to take them for like panic attacks on set,
Right.
So you take it, it does what it's supposed to do within 30 minutes and then it's gone. And benzos are very addictive. And I became addicted to benzos. And so for 2 weeks I was on Ativan, and you can only take one every 6 hours. But for something that only lasts 30 minutes when you're addicted to it, so I was always asking my nurse for Ativan. I'm like, I'm freaking out, I need an Ativan. And he's like, you don't need the Ativan, go take a walk. I don't know what a Polish accent.
Yeah.
But he had like, I'm trying to convey that he had an accent.
Yeah.
He was like, you don't need the Ativan, drink some ice water, go for a walk. And I'm like, go for a walk? Marco, where? Like, there's 2 hallways. I'm gonna walk down that hallway and then come back, and then walk down that hallway and come back. And he's like, if you drink ice water, it'll constrict your blood vessels, which will calm you down from your panic attack. You don't need the Ativan. And I'm like, fuck it, just give me the fucking Ativan. I don't want fucking ice water. I just remember that guy, and he's like, did you have a bowel movement today?
Oh my gosh. Y'all love hospitals.
Yes, Marco, I had a bowel movement today. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Also, during this time, I had my head shaved, in classic mental break fashion. I had buzzed all my hair off. And they wouldn't let me have.
I didn't mean nice. I'm sorry. I didn't mean nice. I meant like I understand.
Oh yeah. Nice. No, I know. I know what you mean. So my hair was growing back, and like I was like, I need to shave my head. I don't have like a buzzer, so I guess I have to use a razor. And they're not gonna let me use a razor. So the nurse was like, I'll just shave your head for you. And I was like, okay. But you really got, like, my hair's thick, you gotta bear down. You really, like, if you're shaving my head with a Bic, like, this is gonna take a while, honey. And she was just like, she was holding it by the end. She's like, and I'm, what are you doing? You're not, and she's like, oh, it's just not coming up. Yeah, because you really gotta shave a little bit harder than that. So she's like, okay, how about you just do it and I watch? And I was like, okay, cool. So I start shaving my head with a Bic, and I get like little cuts here and there. And she's like, okay, you're done. You're done. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm done? I'm not done. I'm still shaving my head. I got, my head, it's like grown out a good bit. Like you can see all dark brown on my head. I'm shaving it with a Bic. I'm Mr. Cleaning this shit. You can't tell me in the middle of it, you're done.
Oh my God, no.
I'm not trying to cut myself, Diane.
Listen to me.
I'm just trying to shave my head. And she's like, no, you're done. This is too much. I don't like this. You're done. So I had razor like streaks in my hairline still. I had only did the back of my neck and like halfway up, I was like, Diane, this is going to be
Come
my
on.
season.
Come on.
Let me walk around this psych ward looking like an actual Looney Tune.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
God. So, I also had a roommate that was a really, 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 really old lady who had like sleep apnea. I got no sleep. They had me so medicated, and every time I asked to talk to my doctor, they were like, he can't see you. I'm like, where the because I can't leave until I talk to the doctor. That was the reason. That was the reason why I was there for 2 weeks. When I'm an adult, I can like excuse myself whenever I want.
Yeah.
But because I was a voluntary admission, I had to stay until I got evaluated by the doctor to tell me that I was safe to go. I know all the things to say that I'm safe to go, you know?
Right.
They just wouldn't let me talk to my fucking doctor. They're like, oh, he's only available on Saturdays. Okay, it's Saturday. Can I talk to my doctor?
Yeah.
Sorry, he's not available this Saturday. Like, what the fuck?
I'm like, oh my God.
So my patron ended up visiting me while I was in the psych ward, which was really embarrassing to me. And also some other people came to visit me. And they were all just very like, hi, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I was just, I couldn't deal with that. I just didn't I didn't want to be patronized. This isn't how I want to be spoken to. I understand where I am. I understand what I tried to do. And you speaking to me like that isn't making me feel any better.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I probably would have rather not had any visitors at all. And my patron, when she visited me, I expressed my desire not to go back to art school because it was just not good for me mentally. I wasn't thriving. I wasn't doing good. It was beating me down and I felt defeated. And she was very upset at that because she like invested in my art education and she spent a lot of money. And so she was very upset and expressed how upset she was that I wasn't going back. And then immediately started requesting that I pay her back, like while I was in the hospital.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I was already stressed out over the loans that I owe $14,000 to the government. And then I owe you money and you want me to start paying. I don't even have a job. I'm still in the hospital. Like,
wow, that's low.
So yeah, the pressure that I'm facing is immense. And I get out and I go back to art school and I try to make up the work that I missed for the 2 weeks that I was admitted. And they tell me that I've missed too much and I can't make it up. And they wouldn't give me any extensions. They wouldn't cut me any breaks. You know, they were just like, you got to be off campus. We're kicking you out. You can't make up this work, so you got to leave. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you literally saw me like,
okay.
Okay, I tried to kill myself on your dorms, like on your property. You know, one of your RAs like found me unconscious on my dorm floor. Maybe let me finish my homework. So then I was homeless.
So sorry, bro.
Because my grandparents couldn't take me back in. And then I lived with my high school English teacher for a few months. We were friends at the time. She would see me often, and I ended up moving in with her. And that's when, you know, I finally started to heal, I guess. It took a really long time. That all happened when I was 19.
Yeah.
Like I moved into the dorms, tried to kill myself, got admitted, got kicked out, moved in with my high school English teacher, all within the same year that I was 19 years old.
Okay.
And then I got a job. I started working. She helped me out. Like, she taught me things that I was too sheltered and didn't find out before. She helped me find therapy and helped me with good coping skills, which are the most important thing in the world. That was the problem was before.
Yeah.
I didn't have good coping skills, so I tried to kill myself because I didn't know how to cope. You got to learn how to cope.
Yeah.
Like, if nothing, just go to therapy to learn good coping skills. If that's the only thing you learn, I think it is probably the most important thing.
100%.
If you don't know how to cope, what are you going to do? You're just going to stew in it.
Yeah.
You're going to stew in it, and it's going to get so bad it's going to break you. You got to cope.
Gotta find a way to cope. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's got to be something healthy. It can't be like getting blackout drunk every night. That's not coping.
Healthy
you know?
skills.
Healthy coping skills.
And those aren't taught, and that's why you have to go to people that know them so they can teach you these things, because those are often never taught.
Can we please learn how to do taxes and also learn coping skills in like public school?
In there, for real.
Like, can that just be thrown into the curriculum?
Yeah. Can we prioritize that somewhere?
Please.
Absolutely.
God. Is there another part for you?
Yeah. I got a little bit more. Yeah.
Got a little something extra for me?
Yeah. I did a lot of therapy throughout school. I did a lot of my as well. My elementary school teacher, I ended up telling her what was going on. And she called the cops, and I realized when I told her what was going on, I knew what was going to happen when I told her. I was very taught not to talk to cops, that they're bad people, like you don't trust them, those people, so I was able to talk to my counselor, and my counselor really got the ball rolling for us to get out of that situation, at least for the time being. So I had a positive experience with therapy from as a child. So I kind of hung on to that, and like, even though I would go back and sometimes you hear a lot of the same things, or when you restart with a counselor, you have to start over. You have to explain everything all over. And that is one of the hardest parts of seeking help, and I think it's a big deterrent of people going back to therapy.
I just want to say that though that is like super annoying and super hard, it is also a really good way to like desensitize yourself to your own trauma in a way. And like, this is one of the things that I learned in cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, remember how I said I don't remember anything about my childhood? Like, I remember two things. My therapist said that all memory is good. All memory is good, even if you remember the bad things. And one of the things that I had to do, like one of my homeworks for cognitive behavioral therapy, was rewriting my traumatic experiences over and over again in the most vivid detail that I could remember them.
Wow.
That my 7-year sexual assault, what I could remember of it, the smell, the temperature of the room, like everything, every sensation that I could remember, anything in the room, paintings on the wall, what color was the carpet, what did he say? What did his voice sound like disgusting, horrible things that happened to me. Write it down in as much as you could remember, because that memory, even though it's bad, your brain is made to remember. You're supposed to remember that. That's a healthy brain, and it's not, we're trying to get to a point where that doesn't trigger you anymore. It's something that happened and it's very sad, but a healthy brain will remember it. And if you write it over and over again and reread it to yourself in your own words, and tell 5 different therapists about it over and over again, and then talk on your podcast about it, You've been talking about it for 10 years now. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, I was sexually assaulted for 7 years. What? Yeah, my mom beat the fucking shit out of me, shoved my head in an oven. Okay, like, I'm 30 years old now. I'm fine. Like, that shit hurts, and it did hurt, and it's hard, but I'm 30 now, and it's
fine.
It's fine. I'm good.
Yeah. Your life is yours now.
Right.
Yours. Yeah.
It gets better. And I think that like those hard parts and the things that keep people away, or like after you have one hard session will like make them not want to come back. Those are the things where you really gotta bear down.
Yeah.
Because you just gotta be familiarized with it, desensitize yourself to it. And then that's when you can start to, learn to cope over the humps.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that as like, while that was frustrating as hell to have to start over and be like, I have to go through all of this horrible things all over again to this new person. So that did deter me through high school, of going back and through my irrational decisions and a lot of my, and I'll call it what it was. It was cheating. I was a mess. I was a hot mess. I was chasing chasing whoever was giving me love, and it was awful. It was very awful.
You know,
you what?
I've been there too.
I mean, it's awful, and it's a guilt that you have to live with the rest of your life, knowing that you screwed people over like that. So that was part of my irrational decisions, that later made a lot of sense. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and say it was at the Trans Tape event in Maryland that I realized that things were not as figured out as I thought they were. And sometimes, I had, after I met Kayla in 2016, I moved to Tennessee. I started over. I got a really good positive life going there. Kayla talked to me about getting back on therapy and getting back on medicine. And I found citalopram, the opposite of S-citalopram. It was very helpful for me. Really helps me a lot still. But it was after this event, I was in front of like a lot of these people that I hadn't met yet. It wasn't, I had never been to a big event like that before. I'd never been in front of the lights like that before. Bo was there the next day, so I barely missed Bo. Bo was there the next day, but I was actually the very first person to go up and try and like get started and get things rolling. And I don't even think it was the experience. I think everyone there was awesome. I think it was just me internally reaching this peak of like all of this moment, all this hard work had worked like up to this moment, it seemed. And I finished my video. I did great. Apparently, it didn't even seem like I was freaking out, but in the moment, I was literally having the biggest panic attack of my life. And I like raced off when my video was done. And I was like, you got everything you need from me, because like I was shaking so badly. And I like left and I like went around this corner to where I knew that they couldn't see me. Like I knew Kai couldn't find me over there. Like I was by myself, and I just started crying. I was just like hysterically started crying. It was a total mess. It was totally awful. Totally awful. I started to realize like I all these racing thoughts, like you just bombed. Like I thought I just ruined it. I thought I did awful. I had no clue. Couldn't tell you what I said the whole time. I didn't know the edits came back. What the fuck my video looked like. the tutorials that many of you guys have watched didn't even know that stuff was going on. That was crazy. And I was sitting there on the phone with Kayla and my Nana, and I was like, I can see how this like rush of emotion, I don't know why, it was just like everything that I'd like, all my trauma, like all my PTSD, like I don't know what happened, something crazy, like wild. I've never experienced it that strong before. And I remember thinking, I drove, and I remember thinking, I need to get straight home. I need to get home. I need to go home right now. And Kai was like, it's late. Like you can't, like I don't want to like just let you drive home. And I was like, Kai, I need to drive home. I need to get to Kayla. Like you don't understand. Like I got to get to Kayla right now. Right now. And he probably thought that I was like mentally ill, and I was like a basket case, and like we had worked together before, but I had never met him, and that was the first time I had ever met him. So I was like, so there goes that connection. Like whatever, like that was cool for the time, like whatever. We'll call it good. But I raced home, came home, I came straight in the back of this building, and I sat right freaking there, and I cried my eyeballs out. And my Nana came over, and my mom was there, or Kayla came in the building with me, and my Nana came over, and she was talking me through, like asking me what had happened and how I was feeling. And my Nana knew exactly kind of what had happened, just because from her personal experience. It was a bipolar episode. It was a slowly increasing over a long amount of time that I thought I was managing enough, and I thought was just too much. Ended up being a lot more than I had thought. So I came home from the Trans Tape event. I proposed to Kayla, bawling my eyeballs out right there, right in the middle of this crazy freaking episode.
Oh my God.
And I was about to check myself into this mental place, and I was like, man, I was just bawling my eyes out. And then I was like, great, now it looks like this freaking proposal, like I didn't even mean it. Like it looks like I was like part of this episode that I didn't mean or whatever. And I was like, if everything else doesn't, the whole point was because of the second I got home, like I instantly, I was just being with Kayla so much. I was just like, I was so happy to be there, just like in her arms. And I was just like, I had this whole thing. I had this citywide scavenger hunt planned. And I said, fuck it, and asked her to marry me and was like, I need to check myself in. I'm really scared, but like, we've been dating for like 5 years. So like, like in this moment, I'm like the most broken I'll ever be. And if you can love me through this, then I'll like, we'll be like, then like that would mean the world to me. So cry.
Aaron, I heard your voice crack and now I'm crying.
No. So,
Aaron, that's so beautiful. Kayla is your person.
So
You needed her to regulate your emotions at that time. I totally understand that.
She was my person, and I wanted to. I wanted that to always be there. And she immediately said yes. Her hair was like in a towel.
Oh my God.
And I was about to check myself into a freaking mental institution, you know. So it was crazy. But I checked myself in. I had some really tough conversations. Seemed like everybody else was very desensitized to therapy. Because I had Kayla to look forward to, coming home to, and I had a family. I could see my family. I could see, you know, I had already got this far on the light at the end of the tunnel. I also had the same experience of like, I can't get to that many. 18 is too far away. I can't fucking do that.
Yeah.
That's too far. Like, I want to take this in my own hands now. Like, I can already make better decisions than me. So I already experienced that. So, so I'd already come through the tunnel. Most way through the tunnel, and I was just, but being, I got diagnosed as bipolar, and I was like, that fucking blows. Okay, so at this point, I'm like, I did the therapy, I did the walkthrough therapy for the sexual abuse, where you like close your eyes and you talk through it very vividly. Heard some people that doesn't work for some people very well. For me, somehow it worked. Maybe it was my connection with my therapist that made it work well. So I was able to work through that. I had been taking regular anti-anxiety medicine, so I was getting my anxiety more under control. And I came out as trans, and I was battling my gender dysphoria and like trying to make something of my life and make something of this like shitty circumstance. Well, at the time, being trans seemed like, you know, like a shitty circumstance, trying to make something out of it. And then of course I'm like punched in the face with the polar bear disease. And I'm like, fuck you, fuck this, that fucking sucks. So I sat there and dropped a bunch of F-bombs for a long time in therapy, and just like they would talk about things where we would, it just really good things. I learned a lot through that, and I got out I think it was 1 week later, 2 weeks later, and was feeling a lot better. I had started some bipolar medication, and because of my Nana doing the research of her 20 years experience with bipolar disease, she had already tried so many medicines with over the years of her life. And they said, that's actually really good, because we can take what your Nana's on now, and statistically, biologically, it should have a better chance with you.
Right.
We'll start.
That's just hereditary.
Exactly.
Right.
We'll start with what she's on, and it worked instantly. So
awesome.
My Nana had done so much research, like, so all her horrible experiences over the years had literally cut those years out of my life.
Right.
Because I got to jump on the end. So that was really healing as well.
That's awesome.
That was 20, gosh, I'm horrible with years. How long ago was Maryland?
Oh, fuck. I don't know, like 2019.
Yeah. So that's how long ago that was. And I have had more time to process.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time to process.
Oh my God.
A little more being bipolar. It still is on the forefront. I'm still learning a lot about it, and a lot about I'm still learning how to like read my body and how like to feel things, because I'm so desensitized to my body. So Going in there and listening is like, whoa, I would
Yeah.
not pass that on my enemy. You don't want to go in there and listen to all those signals. Those are a lot of fucking signals.
Right.
They're fast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think very fast, and it's just personality thing. But I did learn a lot through therapy as well, and it helped. It helped as well as my medication.
My thing with getting diagnosed with PTSD was I started feeling like this kind of guilt. Like in my mind, PTSD was something that like you got when you came home from war, like the soldiers, people got shot at, people who actually like survived getting murdered. Those were the people that got PTSD, not some kid that just got spanked by their mom.
Right.
I'm belittling my own situation on purpose. Like it's not,
because a lot of other people do. That's what they say. Yeah. No,
yeah. I was like, I was just some kid that was like overly disciplined. It can't be PTSD. Like I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. That seems wild to me. And it took a lot to understand that, like, yeah, no, your diagnosis is valid. These are the things that you're experiencing because of you face trauma.
Very
post-traumatic.
You
face traumatic stress. So now, like when I was talking about the stress that I was under, that's traumatic stress. Like,
that's a thing. Absolutely.
Right. And now your brain is different.
Yeah.
Because it was preparing for more traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And so after that, so I wasn't done. And then when I turned 24, I moved in with my biological dad, who's the worst person on the face of the planet, also abused me, but I was like a grown adult. And I was just scared to leave. And I didn't, like, he took all of my resources and means away from me and controlled everything about my life. So there was nothing I could do. I ended up escaping through like some shit with my my math tutor club members, which was actually LGBT club. He was like a huge bigot. But after I got back to Delaware from that hellhole, I got a job. And it was like my first like lasting job. I had been like off and on a disability because of the PTSD, and I was just having a hard time. I would break down randomly because I wasn't in a good situation. I finally started building up my support network. When I was 17, I went into drama, and I ended up auditioning at a local playhouse where I met a guy named Bill who had two daughters that were 12 and 10 at the time. And he saw that I was a kid that needed help. So he like adopted me, and he meant it because he's still my dad. We talk every day, basically.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's still my dad, and he's been like my biggest supporter through like ever since I was 17. He's been in my life now longer than he hasn't been. And
hell yeah.
Yeah, I told him that the other day, and he was like, that's such a great way to think about it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And my support network kind of like started with him. And that's when I started to learn more about like neutrality. Not self-love, but self-neutrality. I had so much self-hatred. Everything I did was bad to me. But there was nothing I could do right. That was my brain telling me that, just lies and bullshit. Right. And he has a lot of wisdom, and I've just learned so much from him, and he taught me neutrality, and like, okay, like it's not great, I could do better, it's not garbage. Like, okay, I'm not.
That's an incredible step though.
Yeah.
That's a nice in-between step.
I know, it's really good. It's a good place to be. Like, I'm not the most attractive person in the world, but I'm not the most unattractive person in the world. And, you know, my body's pretty good at like, it's an able body. I'm thankful that I can breathe despite my asthma. I'm thankful that my legs can move. I'm thankful that my arms can move. And, you know, I have the ability to speak the things that I need. These are all like neutral statements about my body. There are things that are just true.
Yeah.
You know, my body is able. I am able to hear people talk to me. I'm thankful for that. I'm able to see the shows that I like to watch. I'm thankful for that. And from that, you're building the new neural pathways, like I talked about. Like that's that self-deprecating humor that like, I'm garbage. I'm like, I ain't shit. Like that kind of, you're literally building those neural pathways. It seems like a joke, but the more you do it, you're building that neural pathway and you are making yourself believe those things. And sometimes when you already believe those horrible things about yourself, going straight to self-love seems silly because you already hate yourself. So you're looking in the mirror saying, you're beautiful, I love you, and you don't believe it. So it's like, it's dumb. I know, I've done it.
Yeah.
Like I left sticky notes on the side of my mirror that's like, you can do anything, you're beautiful. And I'm like, it's fucking candy ass garbage. You know, like I hate myself. This isn't working. It's the shift to neutrality that really helps.
Neutrality. Wow, that is really
Once
cool.
you build that pathway, then the positive things aren't so silly because you don't hate yourself anymore. You're just neutral. And from neutral, it's easy to go over there. You know, it's one less giant leap.
Dip your toe over there. Yeah.
All right, just dip your little toe in the water. Just be neutral about it. That was a huge thing that I learned from him. Wow. And his daughters ended up being a huge part of my support system. His daughters' friends ended up being a huge part of my support system. They were 12 and 10 when I was 17, but now they're drinking age. And it's been wild going from a kind of like, I know your father and I are close, but I'm not close with you because you guys were just, I was 17 and you were 12. So it was weird. Like, we didn't hang out, you know? And then they started smoking weed and it was like weird for me because I'm like, I know your father and I'm smoking weed with you guys. And I feel like
when you smoke weed with a family member, it's an unlock. It is an unlock.
So they just kind of eventually became my family. And their voice ended up replacing my negative self-talk. They would also do a thing where like I would say sorry all the time or whatever, or like I would apologize for something dumb, like I didn't need to apologize for, and they'd be like,
I know my name.
They'd be like, you know, like, or I'd show up like a little bit too late, and I didn't tell them that I was going to be late or whatever, and I'd show up and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm so late, like I had to get gas or whatever, and they're like, oh, you're sorry that you didn't text us because you were driving and that was the safe thing to do, you dummy. Like, don't be sorry, dummy. And they're like, they're like loving insults, I like to call them. Like, they're not actually insults, but they'd be like, you fucking dummy. Yeah. Of course I love you, dummy. You know, like that kind of stuff. So that their voice, like that voice is replaced my negative self-talk. Because amazing. Like my inside voice would be like, look at this fucking painting, you're a piece of garbage. But then like I'd hear my dad's voice and he'd be like, what the fuck, dummy? Like, this is beautiful. I love this. And then I'm like, yeah, you know what? So that's like kind of how I helped myself like create these new pathways and learn how to self-love, is by knowing and believing that the people around me love me and believing the things that they say, and then taking those little sound bites that I hear from them every day that I believe that they believe is true. Like when they see a drawing of mine and they say, oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing in the world, I am choosing to believe that they are telling me the truth.
So they're not. Real talk, Bo is actually an amazing artist. He does all kinds of crazy shit. Stop. He'll be like doodling during meetings and shit, and then showing us those doodles. And I'm like, damn, he literally sculpts things. He sculpts things. Show them your sculpture. Look at this thing. So that's what Bo's talking about when he's talking about his art skills.
Well,
I
you
love
stare at
it.
something for so long
Seriously,
and you
I
end up hating it.
love seeing the new shit he comes up with. Seriously, every time.
But it's just that was something that was super helpful for me. Like, because you can think all day that like people are lying, or like, oh, they're just being nice, like they don't actually like me, or they all secretly hate me or something. I am choosing not to believe that. I'm choosing to not even consider that as an option.
Right.
I'm choosing to believe that the people who associate themselves with me choose to do so because they find me enjoyable. And I'm choosing to believe that when they give me a compliment, that is what they truly believe in, that they're being honest with me.
Right.
And if that's true, then the things that I tell myself when I say, like, oh, that's stupid, your hair looks dumb, those glasses are dumb, when literally everybody else that I know is gassing me the fuck up.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
the ratio doesn't add up here, Bo. You're obviously dumb. You obviously look great, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of really what helped me tip my mindset in the right direction, is surrounding myself with a wonderful support system and people that I love me and that I trust to love me.
Yep. It's because those good people really do so much just by being decent human beings. Literally, it's crazy what being a decent human being, how healing that can be for someone that has been treated like garbage by people that should have not treated them like garbage.
Yeah.
And that's it right there. Those people are everything. My Nana and Kayla, those are those people that I keep the closest.
And it's almost, I feel like it's almost a bigger gesture for someone who's like, like my mom was supposed to be that person for me.
Right.
She gave birth to me. That was supposed to be her job, but she wasn't. But here comes my adopted dad, no relation whatsoever, 2 kids of his own family, and he knows that I need him, decides to be that person, and then learns that he actually loves me and he enjoys my company. And he doesn't have to be here. He doesn't have to be here 17 years later,
Wow.
But he is. He just messaged me today, sent me 2 TikToks. He messages me every day. Every time he sees, like, there's this band that we listen to, and there's this other TikToker that we like, and we're always sending him back and forth. I don't think we never go more than a day without talking to each other. And he doesn't have to be there, but he is. And that's what makes me feel so good. Because if someone that amazing, like that truly good,
pure,
that awesome person chooses to talk to me every day, I must be a cool person to be around.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I'm confident now, because I mean, you can't tell me shit. My dad wants to talk to me every day. I don't care what anybody else says. He's the coolest person in the world, and he wants to talk to me every day. So
exactly.
I'm the coolest person in the world.
That's how it works. Yeah. That's amazing, dude. That's how you heal. That's
I'm so healed. My inner child is thriving, honestly. Like, as you can see, I just do whatever the fuck I want now, and my inner child is just as giddy as he could be.
Exactly. Literally exactly same. Exactly same.
And it does get better. It really does.
Yeah. Because turning 18 and getting through some tough, even after you turn 18, you can go through some tough shit. But once you really start to, there is light on the other side. There is, you never really know what is. It's cliche as fuck, and sometimes it sucks hearing that because it doesn't change anything right now. But if you are stuck in a situation that you can't get out of, I genuinely believe that planning for when you are able to get out of that situation and prepping yourself in any way is something to hold on to, and something positive to, even if it's just a dream at that moment, to think about what that might actually look like, and what it might look like to have your life in your own hands, and your decisions in your own hands, and the people that you surround yourself with, you put there by choice, because they earn those places.
Cultivating your own garden.
That's it. That's the ticket. We have so much to cover. You guys don't even know. Obviously, we can't get into all those deep, heavy things in 1 hour, 2 hours, or even 3 hours. So I'm
sure that was a long episode.
Sure. Yeah, if you're still listening to this, we fucking love you right now.
This is a heavy one.
This is heavy. I would have had to pause this probably halfway through and finish another day. So if you're watching this or listening to this, we love you and we appreciate you, and we want you to know that it does get better, and we're with you in these steps, because we're still learning how to make our lives even better and make our inner child even more healed.
Yeah. Every day, man.
Every day. So yeah. So we're gonna spark up and get some sleep, and tune in next week for the next episode.
Hooray!
Hooray! Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.